crossing the vast world of obscurity, awakening the check-in system, and rejecting the pursuit of the wealthy woman at the beginning. Checked in and obtained a double pupil. Sign in at the Dalayin Temple and receive the 5-star reward Emperor Seal technique. Sign in inside the Bronze Immortal Hall and receive a 7-star reward for the Immortal Mysterious skill. Sign in above the heavens and receive a 10-star reward for creating a jade plate. Zhangu Clan, step on the restricted area, control life and death, control reincarnation. The heavens and all worlds, the rolling world, have left his footprints. The legend of Emperor Xiantian begins with the coffin pulled by Jiulong in Mount Taishan. Keywords of the novel. Check-in starts from the sky without pop-ups, check-in starts from the sky with no pop-ups, download the complete TXT collection, check-in starts from the sky with the latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Refusing the rich lady at the beginning, signing in with ancient double eyes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Refusing the rich lady at the beginning, signing in with ancient double eyes. Seeking recommendation, seeking collection. Mount Taishan Mountain, towering and magnificent, is respected as the first of the 5 mountains and is known as the best mountain in the world. Mount Taishan has been a sacred symbol since ancient times, surrounded by the Yellow River and the Wen River. In ancient times, Mount Taishan was regarded as the place where everything was rising and developing, and there are more mysterious legends. Mount Taishan was transformed by the head of Pangu god, and it is the first of the 5 mountains. There is no mountain greater than it, no history can surpass it. In front of the magnificent Mount Taishan mountain, people feel small, even the stars in the sky are insignificant. At the moment, at the foot of Mount Taishan mountain, a brand new Lamborghini stopped, a man and a woman got off the car and looked up at Mount Taishan mountain. Mount Taishan is really magnificent, and deserves to be the first of the 5 mountains. The young man sighed lightly and opened his mouth. He was about 20 years old. As soon as he got off the car, he took off his sunglasses, revealing a pair of clear and bright pupils. His face was very handsome, his skin was fair, and his figure was also very symmetrical and upright. Well, it's a great place to meet and play. Let's hurry up the mountain. The woman also sighed and saw that she looked about 30 years old, with a delicate face, light makeup, a voluptuous figure, and a devilish and provocative figure. Her large wavy golden curls on her head emitted a dazzling light, and her slender thighs were dressed in a goose-yellow ultra-short mini-skirt, showing her perfect and unparalleled natural talent. I accidentally spoke your heart out. Chen Xuanzhi's face turned slightly black, thinking so. Okay, Sister Ning. A professional smile appeared on Chen Xuanzhi's face, but at this moment his expression was slightly stiff and unnatural. There was no other reason. The woman with a hot figure occasionally stared at him with fiery eyes, causing him to feel palpitations, as if being stared at by a fierce beast. At the foot of Mount Taishan mountain, the eyes of many tourists were strange, which made him very uncomfortable. It was obvious to all that this pair of men and women were beautiful, but they were strange. The man is fine, young and handsome. As for the woman, although she is extremely beautiful and well-maintained, she can still see some of the ups and downs of time. Old cows eat tender grass. I don't want to work hard anymore. Having been taken care of by a wealthy woman, another member of our generation has fallen into the trap. Is this the extinction of human nature or the decline of morality? Many people are whispering, with men's eyes filled with envy, while women's eyes are very strange. Let's go. Ning Xia reached out her pure white jade-like hand and instinctively wanted to hold on to Chen Xuanzhi's sturdy arm, but she was quietly avoided by the latter. Ning Xia was not angry either, still laughing and chanting, thinking that the young man had a thin face and was embarrassed. But Chen Xuanzhi's heart was very bitter. After experiencing all kinds of things, he looked at Mount Taishan mountain and suddenly felt a trance. He is not from this world, but from another time and space, but to his surprise, this world is very similar to the world on Earth, like parallel time and space. A few days ago, after staying up all night reviewing novels to cover the sky, I woke up to this world. By chance, I was chosen by a wealthy woman as my personal bodyguard. At first, his heart was rejecting, believing that as a man, he should have dignity and be a bodyguard for a wealthy woman, which was too disrespectful for him. But when this wealthy woman named Ning Xia, who works in real estate, offered him a high salary of 100,000 yuan per month, he realized that survival is the only big deal, and bodyguards can't accept anything. Rich woman's close master. He thought this was the script for his future life, but he didn't expect it to be so simple. Today's visit to Mount Taishan was also put forward by Ning Xia. Why do you bring a bodyguard out for a visit? It's self-evident the two of them played along the way and saw mountains of all sizes rolling up and down like waves, with huge waves emptying. The nearby mountains were shrouded in a mesmerizing deep green. The distant mountain is verdant, with a belt of clouds and mist swirling in front of it, like a fairyland. When they arrived at the Jade Emperor Summit, the two stopped. The Jade Emperor Summit, formerly known as Taiping Summit, also known as Tianzhu Peak, is the summit of the main peak of Mount Taishan Mountain, the first of the 5 mountains. It was named after the Jade Emperor Temple on the summit, which was dedicated to the Jade Emperor god. It was built for a long time. It was rebuilt during the Chenghua period of the Ming dynasty. The plaque on the shrine was titled "Firewood to Watch the Wind," indicating that ancient emperors burned firewood here to worship the heaven and the gods of mountains and rivers. Are you in good health? Ning Xia's beautiful eyes shone with a captivating light, and she looked at Xuanzhi with great interest, expressing profound thoughts. Xuanzhi felt a burst of sweat on his face. His physical fitness was surprisingly good. After several hours of hiking, he didn't sweat much and his breathing was still very even. His face was not red and his heart was not jumping, which surprised him very much. It's okay, isn't it? Xuanzhi smiled slightly, but a surprised expression appeared in his eyes. Ning Xia was actually very relaxed, with a natural expression, not at all like an ordinary delicate woman. Ding, when you arrive at the Yuhuangding of Mount Taishan Mountain, the sign and system of the world covering the sky will be opened, the sign in place will be refreshed, and whether to sign in or not. Are you here? The legendary system. Xuanzhi's heart instantly became excited, and he couldn't help but tremble and light a cigarette. He felt a bit lost and needed to take a cigarette to calm down. Fortunately, I didn't give up. After all, I waited for the system to arrive. I was alone in a strange world, and it seemed inexplicable not to give me the system. This dog system finally appeared in time, and I almost got controlled by a wealthy woman. I couldn't help but feel grateful in my heart. In the vast world of obscurity, it turned out to be obscurity, which made him even more excited. He read this novel all night and woke up to come here. In his heart, this novel is truly the pinnacle of work, with endless aftertaste. Ascending the heavenly road, treading on songs, dancing fingers to cover the sky. The vast and endless world of immortals and knights, dazzling and mysterious. Just imagination has already made his blood boil. I estimate that if the system doesn't come back, he will be unable to withstand the pressure of the rich woman, and from then on, he will completely fall into the happiness and tenderness of this rich woman. Sign in. Ding, the Yuhuangding of Mount Taishan Mountain has successfully signed in, and has won the award for signing in as a novice. It is an old-school pupil. With the successful check.in, an incredibly brilliant light fell and integrated into his eyes. Immediately, Xuanzhi's expression shook, and he felt that his eyes had undergone some abnormal transformation, becoming different. A glance at both eyes. Xuanzhi opened the mirror function on his phone and found that there were actually 2 pupils in one of his eyes, which were legendary double pupils. His eyes, which were originally somewhat nearsighted, were exceptionally bright and profound at this moment. Looking into the distance, he could suddenly see the ants crawling 100 meters away. Xiao Chen, what do you think of me? Ning Xia looked at the vast sea of clouds in the distance and suddenly approached. She spoke coldly, with a natural fragrance emanating. Her beautiful mouth curved into a charming smile, and she looked at Xuanzhi with a smile full of laughter. Unexpectedly, in just 3 days, this woman wanted to take him. Perhaps it was because she had just seen him climb the mountain with good physical strength. Sister Ning, you are a good person, but we are not suitable. Xuanzhi's mind quickly pondered, and he politely declined. If he hadn't received the check.in system, he might have been a bit tempted, but now he thinks there's no need anymore. Asking this question indicates that the other party has clearly expressed their thoughts, so he decided to answer directly. After all, the check.in system has arrived, and I should have a greater pursuit, otherwise I will come to this world in vain. Moreover, when he went to pick up the rich woman from the hotel yesterday, he would never forget the pale-faced man walking against the wall behind her sister. Don't you think about it anymore? Ning Xia was a bit surprised. He didn't expect the man in front of him to directly refuse him. As a young rich woman, she had easily taken on some young fresh meat, but she didn't expect to make a mistake this time. With Xuanzhi's clear refusal once again, a hint of frost appeared on Ning Xia's pretty face, and the seductive expression in her eyes disappeared. Then I'll go, you're fired, take care of yourself. After speaking, Ning Xia gave him a deep glance and without hesitation, turned around and walked away. Her head was covered in golden waves that shimmered brightly, and she didn't look back again, appearing very angry. Xuanzhi's eyes were slightly fixed as he looked at Ning Xia's distant figure. Suddenly, his pupils widened and he found that the other person's clothes had all disappeared. However, 3 seconds later, he returned to normal. Double pupils actually have perspective function. Xuanzhi's expression was startled, and he realized that this was the ability of double pupils. In history, Chongtong has been endowed with endless legends, claiming to be the exclusive image of saints and emperors, such as the character-making sage Zhangjie, the western Chu hegemon Xiangyu, and the southern Tang dynasty ruler Liu, all of whom have Chongtong. Covering the heavenly world and the Jade Emperor's peak, is it possible that the 9 dragons' coffin is about to set sail? Xuanzhi understood the plot and was immediately excited. When he arrived at the Jade Emperor peak, could it be that he had his own arrangements in the dark? Just as I was thinking about it, suddenly a bunch of young men and women climbed to the Jade Emperor's peak, with figures mixed and laughing. There were about 30 people, both male and female, and there was actually a young foreigner with blonde hair and blue eyes. Is it possible that this is Yi Fan and his group? The new book has been released, hoping to bring everyone a wonderful story and also hoping that everyone can support it. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Entering the Copper Coffin, The Temptation of Hedao Flower. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Entering the Copper Coffin, The Temptation of Hedao Flower. Oh, Maiga, is this the legendary Jade Emperor peak of Mount Taishan Mountain? The man with blonde hair and blue eyes appeared very excited, dancing and looking at the mountains below, unable to help but exclaim in broken Chinese, attracting the attention of tourists on the side. Kaida, don't shout and shout, it will disturb other tourists. A beautiful woman wearing a cartoon T-shirt and shorts reminded him, and then translated and explained to him on the side, looking towards Xuanzhi. Upon hearing the name Kaide, Xuanzhi was even more excited. This should be the legendary Western god of light, who was also one of the early members who entered the Big Dipper with Yi Fan. At this moment, there were still many tourists on top of the Jade Emperor peak, but Xuanzhi stood there, which was very eye-catching, with people occasionally looking at him. Without him, only handsome. Climbing to the Jade Emperor's peak, I saw a handsome guy at first glance. Many women couldn't help but have strange eyes, constantly paying attention, and even a few came over to ask for WeChat. What, but slightly more handsome than me, unfortunately there are cataracts. A young man who was 1.9 meters tall couldn't help but mutter, looking at Xuanzhi and jokingly whispering to several women accompanying him. Several female classmates rolled their eyes and stroked their foreheads with both hands, looking speechless. Xuanzhi was speechless. His hearing was very sensitive, and he immediately locked onto the person. When someone discovered him, the strong man couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed. Saying a bad word and being overheard is really embarrassing. I'm sorry, there was no intention in speaking. The strong man walked over, scratched his head, and said awkwardly. Xuanzhi looked at the strong man in front of him and smiled slightly, indicating that he didn't care. He understood in his heart that this was probably Pang Bo, the close ally of Emperor Yi Tian. No, theoretically speaking, Pang Bo shouldn't have appeared at this time. He was supposed to appear inside a copper coffin. Could it be his arrival that triggered the butterfly effect and made him arrive at the classmates' gathering in time? But cataracts still need to be treated. Pang Bo reminded him in a timely manner, and Xuanzhi remained silent again. He could see that this time he was sincere, without any teasing or knowing what to say. Unexpectedly, just after Pang Bo said these words, a young man of about 20.4 or 5 years old walked over. He had a tall and straight figure, a delicate face, and an inexplicably calm temperament, clearly belonging to that kind of person. Pang Bo, stop talking nonsense. Hello brother, my name is Yi Fan. I apologize on behalf of Pang Bo. Yi Fan couldn't bear to watch anymore and couldn't help but stand up. At the same time, he was a bit speechless towards Pang Bo. How could anyone persuade someone to treat their illness as soon as they met? It's okay. Unexpectedly, the young man in front of him was actually Yi Fan, who took the initiative to talk forward, which surprised Xuanzhi a bit. Your Excellency actually has the legendary double pupils. In ancient times, it belonged to the image of a saint. Yi Fan smiled and said, he has a clever mind, and with just a few words, he can easily resolve the awkwardness. I see. Xuanzhi understood in his heart that Yi Fan himself was knowledgeable and liked to read books on social media. When he saw the legendary double eyes, he naturally became very curious and encouraged him to actively engage in conversation. Ha ha ha, that's natural. Legend has it that Yu Shun had double pupils. Subsequently, some examples of ancient people with double pupils were listed. Upon hearing this, Yi Fan's eyes lit up. The person in front of him seemed to share the same interests as himself, both liking these strange and incomprehensible things. The two talked for a long time. From the origin legend of Mount Taishan Mountain to all kinds of secrets and illusions about Mount Taishan Mountain in history, there was a feeling that they hated each other too late. Pang Bo on the side was very depressed. He couldn't get in touch with the two people he was chatting with, but kept nodding and agreeing, indicating that I was the same. I don't know how long it has been, but now it is the sunset setting in the west. Above the cloud peaks, there is a layer of golden bright edges, shining like treasures. Suddenly, several black dots appeared in the sky, approaching and then emitting a thunderous roar. 9 huge objects fell down, like 9 long rivers falling. Everyone was startled and couldn't help but turn pale. 9 huge dragon corpses, holding bronze coffins, fell towards the top of Mount Taishan Mountain. Dragon, a legendary thing. Surprisingly, it appeared. Faced with such disbelief, everyone was blinded, and after a brief silence, people scattered and ran. Everyone shouted and panicked, fleeing one after another, finally arrived. Xuanzhi's eyes were shining brightly as Zhulong pulled the coffin to pick up Yi Fan, and he was also preparing to rub against the coffin ticket leading to Beidou. Boom! The 9 massive objects seemed like the 9 mountains had sunk, causing the Jade Emperor's summit to shatter into large cracks, splashing with soil and dust. 900-meter-long giant dragon corpses, with the majority of their bodies lying quietly on the mountaintop and the remaining half hanging at the foot of the cliff, resembling a black steel great wall, full of shocking power and extremely striking visual impact. Although Xuanzhi had read the novel, he was still shocked at this moment. This legendary thing was also his first time seeing it. He couldn't help but turn his heavy pupils and gazed over, only to see a void within the dragon's body, hazy, like a place of deathly silence. "Brother, don't be stunned, let's go down the mountain together." Yi Fan quickly reminds. "Go down the mountain, go down to Hammer Mountain. If you miss this trip, can you still make up for it?" Xuanzhi was speechless in his heart. The ruthless emperor probably had already welded the car door in secret, and you couldn't even leave if you wanted to. "Look, what is this?" In the crack, everyone gradually discovered some jade books, and next to them was a 5-colored soil altar. "That's the Tang and Song jade book." Xuanzhi walked over, carefully examined it, and couldn't help but speak up. "You actually know this thing?" Bo couldn't help but speak, his eyes showing a hint of surprise, and everyone looked over as well. In the 20th year of the Republic of China, Ma Hongkue led the army to garrison at the foot of Mount Taishan Mountain, and accidentally found a 5-color earthen altar with 2 sets of jade books, namely the legendary Tang and Song jade books. Yes, then these 5-colored earth altars should be altars. It seems that all these are used by the legendary emperors to worship Mount Taishan when they were offering sacrifices. Yi Fan couldn't help but speak up. Upon hearing this, everyone's expression immediately became inexplicably excited, knowing how precious it was. "This is our destiny." Bo laughed heartily, his eyes fixed on the jade books depicting obscure symbols, his expression somewhat fiery, and he couldn't help but rub his hands. "Young man, your idea is very dangerous. Aren't you afraid to sit in jail and wear it?" Xuanzhi smiled and joked, but Bo remained speechless. He thought about this truth, but his expression was somewhat regretful and unwilling. Surprisingly, outside the 5-colored earth altar, he grabbed a handful of soil and put it into his pocket. "This is probably a good thing, take it home as a souvenir." Bo couldn't help but mutter, the action of accepting was indeed not slow at all. Seeing everyone speechless, Xuanzhi's mouth twitched. This brother is a wolf, just like a locust passing through. No wonder he later dared to bite even the coffin of the undead emperor. There's more there. As everyone watched, they were surprised to find that there were more than 10 5-colored altars. Is it true that in ancient times, there were emperors and emperors who were enshrined here? Yi Fan whispered. Perhaps there is really such an incredible forgotten period, shrouded in dust and history, unknown to everyone. Xuanzhi replied. Everyone discovered a super-large altar, and their expressions were surprised. The altar, which had previously borne an incredibly terrifying weight, was unscathed without any signs of breakage. It was made of an unknown material. Let's go, this place is not suitable for staying long. Someone hesitated to speak and instantly gained everyone's recognition. This place was too eerie, making them very uneasy in wanting to leave. Just as everyone was about to leave, the 5-colored stone altar began to shake, the Jade Emperor's peak shook, and after a whirlwind, everyone was shaken off and fell onto the stone altar, knocking down some jade and ancient books. The light flickered, while the stones shattered, and scenes began to appear one after another. The crowd exclaimed in surprise, but couldn't change anything. They felt as if they were inexplicably enveloped by a force, unable to move, and extremely desperate. Bang! The bronze coffin vibrated, and the cracks on the lid of the coffin continued to widen. Everyone felt a daze as they were absorbed into the coffin. It's so noisy lying down. Oh my goodness! I split open. What the hell is this place? Bang! 9 huge dragon corpses hanging on the cliff were shaking, while at the same time, the lid of the bronze ancient coffin made a loud noise, and then it was completely restored and closed. Everyone's faces turned pale, and the huge coffin closed automatically, as if locking them all inside. This couldn't help but evoke a sense of despair in their hearts. But at this moment, Xuanzhi was huddled in a corner, his eyes showing a look of contemplation. He thought of something. According to the original record, inside this bronze coffin, there would be a ruthless emperor who left a Hedao flower for Yi Fan, which made him quite tempted. Unfortunately, he didn't let it go now. If he eats it, he will immediately become the emperor, which can be said to be a great achievement. This kind of good thing has made him feel hot in his heart, but unfortunately, he can't get it now. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. System Launch Recharge Function, New Check.in Location. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. System Launch Recharge Function, New Check.in Location. I don't know what's inside now. Xuanzhi turned his pupils and a mysterious aura flickered in his eyes. He carefully gazed at the center of the coffin, but found nothing, as if his breath had been cut off by something. My current double pupils are probably still in the growth stage and have not yet entered formal practice, so it is not so convenient to explore many things. Double pupils claim to be able to break through illusions and reach their essence through vanity. From the current perspective, it's only convenient to see through ordinary people or similar things. Xuanzhi understood that at this moment, he couldn't get along with the Dao flower. Some abnormal weather had bloomed, and even if it did, he couldn't open the coffin. Moreover, this Dao flower was originally prepared by the ruthless emperor for Yi Fan, fearing that he wouldn't be able to stay behind as the emperor. As the protector of the Dao in Yi Fan's secret world and the defender of the heavenly world, the strength of the ruthless emperor is unbelievably powerful. As the most powerful group of emperors, if she were to target them, it would not be a good thing. Ding, the new Check.in location has been refreshed. The Leiyin Temple, please sign in as soon as possible. Ding, the system has launched a recharge function. What good things will there be this time? Last time I directly checked in for double pupils, but this time I don't know what happened, which made him quite excited. He was even more surprised to find that there was a recharge function. Just as Xuanzhi was pondering over Hedao flower and Check.in, some other people in the copper coffin, namely Yi Fan's classmates, had already been complaining, with a gloomy expression. Why is it like this? My phone actually has no signal. This is the latest kidney machine, and my fans have turned black. I want to buy a domestic kidney machine when I go back, so I gave it a bad review. Stop yelling. It is estimated that the Mount Taishan base station is damaged, and we have no signal. It is estimated that there is something in the copper coffin that can isolate the signal. Don't panic, everyone. If this kind of thing happens on Mount Taishan, the whole country will know it soon, and even the world will be shocked. It is impossible that there is no news. We just need to wait for rescue. The speaker was Zhou Yi, who was very calm and composed in his words. In an instant, some people quieted down, and everyone felt more at ease. However, some female classmates were still sobbing in secret. Let's gather together. Zhou Yi made a proposal. Everyone agreed with this proposal and gradually got closer together, gathering together through the faint lights of their phones, dimly illuminating their ever-changing faces, appearing very eerie. At this moment, Xuanzhi, who was still pondering the flower of Hedao, suddenly came to his senses. He looked at the crowd with a strange art style and suddenly took out a large flashlight from his backpack to open it. In an instant, the inside of the copper coffin became much brighter. Even the atmosphere is not so eerie anymore. After all, there are many bright lights now, and the people gathered around are staring at each other awkwardly, realizing that some people are almost sticking to each other face to face. The atmosphere that was so eerie just now disappeared without a trace in an instant. Everyone looked back at the man curiously and came to Mount Taishan to play. There was such a large flashlight. I don't know whether he came to travel or explore. Seems to feel the eyes of everyone. Xuanzhi smiles awkwardly. Well, I'm a mountaineer and like adventure. This flashlight will naturally be carried with me, and Mount Taishan is no exception. Everyone's faces suddenly realized, no wonder this was the case. However, the brighter interior did indeed make people feel more at ease. After all, darkness can most arouse fear of the unknown. And only Chen Xuanzhi himself knew the true situation of the flashlight. When he entered the copper coffin, the check.in system actually prompted him to activate and update the recharge function. This made him need it for a while. Is it necessary for him to take the path of becoming an immortal with money? Some daily necessities can be recharged and exchanged, such as this flashlight, which can also be exchanged for food and drink. According to the introduction, after entering the cultivation page, recharging can also obtain cultivation techniques and weapons. Now, although I have double pupils, I am still an ordinary person without cultivation, so only some daily necessities can be recharged and exchanged. He directly recharged 648 yuan for no other reason, with a minimum requirement of 648 yuan for the first time, and he didn't feel it either. After all, when it comes to Beidou, this money won't be used anymore. Moreover, after redeeming a large lighting flashlight for the first 648 charge, the system prompted that there was actually a reward for the first charge, which was like a trick used by a certain news outlet before crossing the river. The first recharge reward is a whip and 2 candles. Chen Xuanzhi is just a good guy. What's the use of this thing? It's not practical at all. Besides, the check.in system doesn't seem very serious. As the light brightened up, everyone began to observe the interior. On the walls of the copper coffin, there were many ancient bronze carvings, deep starry sky maps, ancient ancestor carvings, various forms of ferocious beasts, and even some deities suspected to have tears on them. Looking for the light, everyone discovered a copper coffin in the center, which made people exclaim in surprise. This is a true coffin, with the outer layer being a coffin cover. The two together are the coffin. Pang Bo explained to some unfamiliar classmates that looking at Chen Xuanzhi and Yi Fan was like inviting credit, demonstrating that he also understood these mysterious knowledge. After all, he was an upright undergraduate student, not just me. Chen Xuanzhi laughed heartily. Pang Bo really has a somewhat childlike and straightforward personality. Everyone couldn't help but turn pale, thinking that this real coffin might actually contain a corpse, and couldn't help but feel a little scared. However, due to the bright light and everyone leaning together, their fear decreased significantly, and soon everyone began to whisper. All of this seems to be related to the central 5-colored altar. Was it the 9 dragons coffin summoned by him? Do these bronze carvings record this unknown myth, and the ancestors in these bronze carvings summoned inexplicable beings here? Why is it that the successful summoning of the altar nowadays is due to our ancestors' ancient summoning missing the time, and should it be the manifestation of ancient traces in contemporary times? Everyone was discussing and their fear decreased significantly. Everyone started chatting, and even some unmarried single female classmates of Yi Fan wanted to actively add Chen Xuanzhi, only to find that there was no signal and they couldn't add him. Chen Xuanzhi took the initiative to briefly introduce himself to everyone, and he also became familiar with this group of Yi Fan classmates. With his naturally familiar personality, he quickly integrated into them and got along well with them. Bang! After an unknown amount of time, everyone seemed to feel a tremble in the bronze coffin, as if it had fallen, but it was resolved by an invisible force and landed smoothly. Have you arrived at the ancient star of Yingguo? Chen Xuanzhi's heart trembled as he was about to welcome his first stop outside the coffin. This place was a dangerous area, suppressing the world's monsters. Even if he had double pupils, he had to be very careful in his actions. Did the rescue team come to save us? Oh my God, thank God. Everyone was overjoyed, and a few even began to cry because they saw the lid of the coffin open and the light shining out from outside, showing them hope. At that moment, everyone felt as if they had also turned into light. Everyone left the inside of the coffin one after another and crawled out. But they were stunned by the sight. The towering and magnificent Mount Taishan mountain disappeared. The earth was as dark as red blood, and huge rocks stood like tombstones, which seemed extremely strange. Everyone searched along the previously bright spot and found a huge rock ahead, engraved with strong and powerful characters. This seems to be Zhong Dingguan. The first character is Ing. Zhou Yi spoke up. It's Ying, that's Mars. Yi Fan recognized the complete two words and said, looking at Xuanzhi. Xuanzhi also nodded with a serious expression on his face. Everyone's expressions changed greatly, and they couldn't help but be stunned. They never expected it to be Mars. When they looked at the moon in the sky, it was only half the size of its usual size. Then they fully understood that it was no longer on Mount Taishan, and even if it was not Mars, it was still in an unknown place. Everyone was feeling heavy, but Xuanzhi's expression remained somewhat calm. As soon as he came down, he looked at the ancient star with double pupils and found that the earth was incredibly desolate, red and desolate, but he had not yet seen any creatures appear. He knew that according to the development of the plot, he would have to take away the artifacts from the temple after entering the Dalayin temple, and the demons would only be unblocked and unexpected situations would occur. Therefore, he took a few packets of potato chips from his backpack and distributed them to Yi Fan and others, but Yi Fan and others declined. In this situation, they really had no appetite. Everyone was speechless. In this situation, Xuanzhi surprisingly still had an appetite and was also a werewolf. However, Xuanzhi felt bitter in his heart. He just realized that using the pupil technique is extremely exhausting, and practitioners are fine. If it were an ordinary person, there would be a significant loss. But although he was babbling to eat, his double pupils opened, staring around, maintaining high-speed operation to avoid unexpected situations. Not long after, everyone stepped on a piece of rubble and instantly regained their spirits, indicating that this place had been inhabited by people before, so there was hope. Everyone walked along the light source and discovered many collapsed palaces. After passing through the ruins, they were surprised to see an ancient temple in front of them. Xuanzhi understood that this was the place to suppress the crocodile ancestor Ding. Have you checked in at the Dalayin temple? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Escape from Mars and want to grab the edge of Fanji. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Escape from Mars and want to grab the edge of Fanji. Sign in. Ding, successfully sign in and receive a 5-star reward of Emperor's Seal Technique. A complex and obscure technique entered his mind, and Xuanzhi glanced roughly at it before automatically unfolding his quantum wave reading. He felt very extraordinary and his heart was burning with excitement. The Emperor's Seal decision is divided into 5 forms, with one seal being even stronger than the other. It can be practiced to the extreme, even overturning rivers and seas, swallowing heaven and earth. Unfortunately, it has not been practiced yet. If one practices it officially, they can practice this first seal. Kai Shan Yin. Everyone stopped in front of the ancient temple, looking excited. In front of the ancient temple, there is a Bodhi tree that is as strong as a dragon, adorned with 5 or 6 green leaves, each of which is crystal clear and shimmering with green light, like a jade god. The double pupils operate, and in the light of the eyes, the pupils converge. Staring at the Bodhi tree, one feels infinite mystery and unfathomability. The Bodhi tree is known as the tree of contemplation and enlightenment. He knew this was Yi Fan's chance, and in order not to disrupt the plot, he was not prepared to take it, let alone say it. Double pupils are already invincible, why bother grabbing Bodhisattva again? I went to the wrong set. Luck is such a thing that has its own double pupils. If you can't get anything good, just look for an object in the ancient temple in front of you. As expected, after a while, some artifacts from the ancient temple were gradually taken by these students, such as caddies, prayer beads, jade rui, and so on. Even Kaide, a foreigner, surprisingly found half of a broken wooden fish and lightly tapped it. Xuanzhi looked at it with a smile, like a foreigner pretending to be a holy monk. How ridiculous it seemed. Xuanzhi's pupils twirled slightly, his eyesight was amazing, and he also found half of the diamond pestle. It was shining brightly, and at first glance, it was not an ordinary thing. However, the best one still belongs to the copper lamp that Yi Fan obtained, which surpasses other objects by a large margin. Looking at Pang Bo again, he was indeed not an ordinary person. For some reason, he actually took off the plaque of the ancient temple in Dalian Temple, leaving everyone speechless. Lu Yunji, who had previously been hostile to Yi Fan and had been beaten in the face by Yi Fan with a Mercedes-Benz, now has a black face and has not found anything. Xuanzhi glanced at him and understood that the diamond pestle originally belonged to him, but now he had found it first. Lucky, as the saying goes, good people don't last long, and disasters will last for thousands of years. Do you, a cunning kid, have a Vajra pestle? It probably doesn't make much difference, does it? Xuanzhi couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Just as Pang Bo took off the plaque, the ancient temple was also collapsing, and everyone gradually realized that perhaps the five-colored altar was the only way to survive. So they planned to go back the same way, and on the way back, not long after, a female classmate suddenly fell to the ground and died inexplicably, which made everyone look very shocked because a terrifying blood hole appeared on her head. Before everyone could break their hearts, they gradually discovered that several more people had fallen, all with bleeding holes on their foreheads, which was extremely eerie. People who were frightened by fear quickly wanted to stay away from this place. Then they were surprised to find that the Buddhist artifacts and divine objects in the ancient temple could withstand the unknown danger, and they all held them in their hands, carefully heading to the altar to escape. Originally, Lu Yunji intended to use the Vajra pestle to cause trouble. At this moment, his face turned gray and he looked like a lost dog, without any Buddhist tools, and could only hide under someone else's tools to escape. Immediately after, as they arrived at the altar, earth-shattering roars came from the direction of the Dalian temple, shaking the sky and making everyone tremble with fear. What is that? Are there any other creatures on Mars? Legend has it that under the ancient Dalian temple, there are countless demons suppressed, someone trembled and said. Puff. To everyone's surprise, a corpse was found not far away, with a cone-shaped black head covered in scales and resembling a crocodile. It was these little crocodiles who killed their classmates. Everyone noticed that the people who had fallen to the ground were actually their actions. Their eyes were frightened and they kept retreating. Surprisingly, the little crocodiles were not just one, constantly surrounding them. The obscure Bagua diagram in the sky of the five-colored altar only has a little brilliance left, indicating insufficient energy to activate. 3-inch small miscellaneous things, they actually killed a few of my classmates, I really killed you all. Pang Bo let out a strange cry, his eyes turning red, and he took the lead in appearing. The plaque at the Dalian temple was vigorously pressed forward by his dancing, and it hit a large area. Yi Fan also carried the lamp forward and blew it towards the wick. Suddenly, a divine flame erupted, burning a group of divine crocodiles black and smelling. Xuanzhi, on the other hand, held a diamond pestle in his hand and used the double pupils technique in his eyes. In his eyes, the speed of these little divine crocodiles slowed down. One by one, he caught the attention of everyone, and surprisingly, no fewer divine crocodiles were killed than Yi Fan and the others. God and Special Buddha, give me a hand to suppress these demons. Kaida also came on the stage, very brave, rotating the wooden fish, muttering about God's generosity at times and my Buddha's mercy at other times, but he didn't hesitate to take action. The little crocodile was constantly being killed, and its screams were very mournful and eerie, making people shiver uncontrollably. Alas, the blood of these little crocodiles has converged into the energy of the gossip chart. Xuanzhi appropriately reminded everyone that they had awakened and couldn't help but smash harder. If the five-color altar had sufficient energy, it could be activated. This is their hope for escape. That's right, using blood sacrifice as nourishment for the altar gives us hope, Zhou Yi also spoke up. As everyone accelerated their pace, suppressed their fear, and fought against the divine crocodile, the light of the Tai Chi and Bagua in the sky became more and more brilliant, as if gathering one energy after another. In the distance, the earth-shattering roar of the crocodile ancestor sounded, and a pair of blood moons appeared in the sky, which were the eyes of the crocodile ancestor. Quickly enter the copper coffin. Due to Xuanzhi's intervention, this blood sacrifice was not as thrilling as the original text. The withdrawal completed the blood sacrifice, and everyone entered the copper coffin one after another. Surprisingly, there is still a female classmate who hasn't entered, as if searching for something. "You're so desperate, go inside." Xuanzhi roared and kicked her buttocks behind her. Xuanzhi was bounced back and shook, while the female classmate stumbled and entered the copper coffin bang. The coffin lid was closed, and everyone appeared inside the copper coffin. However, after a while of closing the coffin, the little crocodile ancestor heard his earth-shattering roar of unwillingness. "That's it." Xuanzhi roused in his heart that he had thought that the crocodile ancestor would arrive at the moment the coffin lid was closed. How exciting it was! Unexpectedly, this blood sacrifice was too fast, and the crocodile ancestor did not respond, so the altar started. When it reacted, the car gods of Qumingtian had already set out on the road, so it could only be powerless and furious behind it, roaring incessantly. "Thank you, Xuanzhi." The female classmate who was kicked was still trembling slightly, unable to believe the thrilling scene just now. If caught up by the crocodile ancestor, he would definitely be torn to pieces. "You're welcome, coming out together is all about sharing hardships and fate. I'm curious, what are you still looking for in that situation? Is it something important?" "No, it's just a phone." Her voice is as soft as mosquito feet, a bit embarrassed. "What does a mobile phone have? It's not expensive to buy it again if it's a big deal." "No, mainly because that phone has some photos of me." The female classmate whispered to Xuanzhi. Xuanzhi's mouth twitched slightly, his eyebrows and eyes slightly raised. "Ah, this girl seems to have a lot of information when she says this sentence. However, are you afraid that the crocodile ancestor will still check your phone?" He murmured in his heart. Although everyone was lifted out of poverty, they were still very silent. It is regrettable that many of the fresh lives before have already passed away forever. Suddenly, Xuanzhi, who was closing his eyes to regulate his breath, noticed a hint of something unusual that made his body feel cold. His eyes were incredibly deep, and he didn't even notice a faint mist spreading. A figure, with a disheveled hair, faintly concealed among the crowd, occasionally appearing on the walls of the copper coffin. De Qing's sacred body divine recitation. Xuanzhi's eyes were solemn and focused. He knew that this was the deity Nian from the ancient temple who escaped with the crocodile ancestor. This deity Nian was captured by Amitabha Buddha in the past, and because of his achievements, he couldn't bear to kill him, so he suppressed him on Mars. Click. Not long after, the deity Nian did indeed take action. A male classmate came down with clear strangulation marks on his neck, and the ruler in his hand fell to the ground. "Oh grass, let's take action." Xuanzhi's gaze was solemn. But it didn't happen as Lu Yunji suspected Yi Fan in the original text. The pollution limit was his fault, and the reason was none other than that. The people inside the copper coffin were doing it closer, and the key is. Before Xuanzhi, he thoughtfully took out another headlight. The place where they were sitting was very bright, and it was probably clear who had taken action. Xuanzhi's unintentional action has also resolved many conflicts. No matter how bad Lu Yunji is, he cannot open his eyes and tell lies. I have unintentionally resolved many conflicts, and if the system has a functional achievement, I estimate that I have already achieved the initial goal of creating a peace ambassador. I saw a fingerprint suddenly appear on Lu Peng's neck, and then she fell down. The weak woman named Lu Yi suddenly spoke up and explained, her tone trembling uncontrollably. "Perhaps there are ghosts inside." "Don't talk nonsense, I'm so scared." Everyone's expressions changed wildly. After experiencing the Martian disaster, would they encounter ghosts again? If it weren't for ghosts, how could a good person inexplicably have fingerprints on their neck and then die? However, later on, everyone discovered that a small crocodile wriggled inside his body, and they quickly killed it, feeling relieved. When the matter came to an end, everyone thought it was the little crocodile who was causing trouble, but Chen Xian's eyes were deep, and the deity Nian was hiding very deep. He casually glanced and realized that the deity Nian had not noticed him, so he breathed a sigh of relief. Not long after, Chen Xuanzhi discovered that Yi Fan had actually stood up, with an inexplicable charm in his body. He knew that it was the opportunity of Bodhi Z that had played a role. Did you hear any sound? Yi Fan looked at the small coffin in the center with confusion, and everyone shook their heads, feeling very confused. Only Chen Xuanzhi understood. That was a 100-character scripture, which made him feel a bit envious and couldn't help but want to go over and rub against it. However, seeing the god Year lying not far away with disheveled hair, he felt a wave of emptiness in his heart. The protagonist of Yi Fan's destiny is naturally unobstructed, and his own anomaly is probably not enough to be manipulated by the divine body still prioritized stability. Chen Xuanzhi comforted himself and then thought of something else. Just listen. The more I thought about it, the more I realized it was like this. I thought to myself, I'm afraid of Adur. If Ali fools him, it's over. Chen Xuanzhi gritted his teeth, remained motionless, and quietly slipped to Yi Fan's side while ensuring that the deity of the Deshang holy body did not notice him. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Arriving at the ancient forbidden area. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Arriving at the ancient forbidden area, Yi Fan was also unaware at this moment, because he was holding the bronze ancient coffin in his hand and standing there motionless, with a transcendent and extraordinary aura rippling out. Chen Xuanzhi approached, equally focused and trying to silently comprehend, but to his embarrassment, he couldn't even sense the yarn. Whether it was due to Bodhisattva or Yi Fan's exclusive chance, although Chen Xuanzhi had some doubts, he did not continue to investigate. Did you say they were possessed by some ghost? Lu Yunji said to Li Chongqing beside him like this. Li Chongqing nodded in agreement. Chen Xuanzhi naturally heard it at the moment and couldn't help but turn black on his face. He then stared at it with an unpleasant expression on his face. These guys were originally at odds with Yi Fan, but now they see themselves getting closer to Yi Fan, and because they are not part of their group, they have begun to target themselves and Yi Fan and their group. You're looking for cigarettes, biting people indiscriminately. Pang Bo held on to the plaque of the Dalayin temple with an expression of ill will, as if he wanted to rotate it. Chen Xuanzhi's face twitched slightly as he noticed that Lu Yunji seemed to have received a damaged ruler from a classmate who had died unexpectedly before. No wonder Chen Xuanzhi's mouth curved into a cold smile, realizing that he felt he was capable again. Lu Yunji was one of those weak and submissive individuals who, once in power, would strike hard. When Lu Yunji had not obtained a Buddhist artifact before, he was still honest and did not dare to cause trouble. However, now, it is estimated that the students here have been inexplicably harmed and stimulated by the divine crocodile, and have started to become demons with his small group of people. Even though Chen Xuanzhi put in a lot of effort in the early stages, the eerie atmosphere and hostile calculations in the original work have been greatly reduced. But there are still some things that will happen in another way. Alright, don't argue anymore. Zhou Yi frowned slightly and then looked around, saying, at the moment, we can't be 100% sure about safety. We need to be careful. Some people's expressions tightened upon hearing it, and they stopped talking. After all, those creatures were too frightening. I don't know what kind of changes have happened right now. After all, there is one's own variable here, so we still need to be very careful. Previously, due to my own joining, I completed the bloodstains ahead of schedule. The Buddhist artifacts obtained from the ancient temple, according to the original work, have almost lost their divine nature, but now they can still exert tremendous power. Not long after, suddenly everyone heard a strange voice, although very faint, it shook people's hearts. The sound of drums came from a distance, seemingly from a distant time and space, dull and filled with sorrow. Then, a funeral bell rang, filled with sadness, ethereal and real. To everyone's surprise, it seemed that the drums and bells were coming out through the coffin wall, making them shiver uncontrollably. Isn't this the morning song for Emperor's burial in ancient times? Suddenly, more mournful sounds came, faintly converging, as if tens of thousands of people were mourning for a person's funeral. Suddenly, the sound of dragon chants echoed through the mountains and rivers, shaking the heavens and earth. It seemed like a real picture was carved in the historical starry sky. At that moment, everyone had a certain feeling, as if they had witnessed with their own eyes a scene of an ancient emperor descending across the world, crisscrossing the vast wilderness, followed by an unprecedented and massive funeral. Our divine relics are beginning to emit light. The crowd was shocked and pale, with divine radiance scattered everywhere. Thousands of radiance flowed out of the Buddha's vessels and disappeared into the carved image on the bronze coffin wall. The coffin wall was originally covered with green copper rust, but at this moment, the blurry carvings of ancient ancestors and gods have come to life as if resurrected. Look over there, the starry sky is flickering. Pangbo let out a low cry. Where everyone is looking, as the largest ancient landscape, is a vast expanse of starry sky. At this moment, all the stars are shining, while the copper coffin wall, as the background color, has not changed at all. These 7 stars are particularly bright, seemingly the Big Dipper. Wang Ziwen pointed out and said. Look at that shiny thin line, it seems to be extending and constantly approaching the Big Dipper. Is it possible that our path forward is the 7 stars of the Big Dipper? Given the current technology of humanity, it is impossible to fly there for millions of years, which is indeed too far away. That thin line no longer spreads, it's frozen in the Big Dipper domain. Are we about to leave the coffin soon? It's really a strange journey. Pangbo couldn't help but mutter to himself. To be precise, we belong to the category of illegal immigrants who not only haven't bought tickets but also haven't received replacement tickets when going to the coffin. Xuanzhi also smiled and everyone couldn't help but laugh. Dear passenger, your interstellar coffin number 9527 has arrived at the terminal station. Pangbo suddenly joked like this, just as his words had finished, he hadn't waited for everyone to react. Everyone felt that the earth was spinning and the bronze coffin was violently shaking, as if sinking. It seems like we have really reached the finish line. Is this another starry sky? Following the path of the gods, will it be the legendary fairyland? Everyone was excited and nervous, even Xuanzhi was a bit excited. Finally, he arrived at the legendary Beidou, where many brilliant stories were staged and endless legends made him leisurely fascinated. Bang! The coffin lid seemed to have been opened, deviated from its position, and fell heavily to the side. A bright world. The breath of freedom. I'm saved, the crowd in the bronze giant coffin exclaimed excitedly, this place is no longer the desolate land above Mars. The fresh air mixed with the fragrance of the soil rushed towards us. Everyone stood up and quickly rushed towards the outside of the copper coffin. What they saw before them was a magnificent and beautiful scenery. At this moment, they are on a mountaintop with many views to overlook. In the distance, there are undulating and beautiful peaks, with strange and protruding stones and ancient trees resembling dragons standing tall, full of vitality. Xuanzhi put on sunglasses and carried a backpack, like a young traveler. He carefully examined everything in front of him and couldn't help but secretly marvel. He truly lived up to the reputation of the ruthless emperor's dojo, truly extraordinary. Great, it's really a beautiful world, even more beautiful than many 5A national scenic spots. Unfortunately, my phone ran out of battery, otherwise I would take some good photos. Finally, there's no need to worry or be afraid anymore, some people burst into tears of joy. Bang! Just as everyone was sighing, the bronze giant coffin let out a metallic tremor. They found out that the bronze coffin was on the edge of a cliff and had fallen into the abyss, which made everyone feel scared. Upon careful examination of the surroundings, everyone discovered that 9 large mountains were interconnected, surrounding an immensely large valley. Looking down, it was a pitch-black expanse. What is this place? There's half a stone tablet there. Zhang Xiling ran over. What was written? Many people were puzzled. Forbidden in the past, what does it mean? There are also broken parts. Everyone opened up and finally confirmed that when combined, it was the 4 big characters of the forbidden area in the wilderness. Forbidden area, it suddenly gives people many bad associations. Careful people find that although there are flowers, plants, vines, and trees around, there is no trace of biological activity, which is completely unscientific. Xuanzhi's heart was clear, but he didn't show anything. In his mind, there were all those fruits and holy springs. After all, it is a god of rejuvenation, which can return to the state of being a teenager. When practicing in that way, the starting point will be higher. Who said there's no living thing? There's an eagle there. Xuanzhi was holding a cigarette in his mouth, with a smoky and pleasant expression. He swallowed the mist and looked not far away. Everyone was speechless for a moment, and his addiction was strong enough to smoke as soon as he got out of the coffin. However, the eagle also caught the public's attention. It was hovering, golden all over, and its entire body was cast like gold. It's noisy lying down. Wang Ziwen saw the eagle from far to near, and his body trembled with fear. It collided with Xuanzhi, causing the cigarette in his mouth to fly out. Unfortunately, it landed on the back of Lu Yunji's hand not far away, causing him to grin in pain. Lu Yunji's gaze was not kind, and Wang Ziwen apologized repeatedly. The shock was not without reason. The eagle flew closer, rushed into a forest, and then flew up again. Only then did everyone realize that it was actually a giant elephant caught by his claws. It can be imagined that it is such a huge ferocious bird. Is it a golden-winged peng? Yi Fan whispered. This is a great discovery, a new species that has never been discovered before, and it is bound to shock the entire scientific world. You are a scientific individual. Pang Bo is speechless. Your son, God, his elders have abandoned you here. How dare you still talk about science? Pang Bo, please have a good attitude. Li Xiaoman is dissatisfied. Xuanzhi picked up another cigarette and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He naturally knew that Pang Bo was venting his anger on Yi Fan by doing so. Li Xiaoman brought back Kaida this time, and Pang Bo probably thought that Li Xiaoman was because Kaida dumped his good friend Yi Fan, so he naturally wouldn't have any good tone towards Kaida. By the way, it seems that in the original work, Li Xiaoman was possessed by something resembling a crocodile deity. I wonder if he hasn't rewritten history at this moment. He operated his double pupils and found that Li Xiaoman's body could be prohibited from being examined. This immediately indicates that there is a problem with Li Xiaoman. Others can view it, but Li Xiaoman cannot, which indicates a problem. What kind of world have we come into? Everyone remained silent, gripping the Buddhist artifact in their hands. Later, they were surprised to find that the radiance in their hands was fading, and some Buddhist deities were cracking. Xuanzhi understood that inside the copper coffin, it seemed that in order to activate those carvings, the copper coffin walls also absorbed these energies. These Buddhist artifacts, after all, are just like the original text and cannot be used. Is there a fixed number in this world? Then he turned his double pupils and gazed into the ancient abyss. He thought he had gained nothing, but accidentally discovered a huge black figure that seemed to be bound by an iron chain. Xuanzhi's eyes lit up and he regained his gaze. After a thorough exploration, he exhausted himself greatly and deprived him of too much energy. He stumbled and seemed to fall down, while Yi Fan beside him was quick-witted and helped him. Numerous women came over, looking at him with concern. I said, brother, you seem a bit weak. Cataracts haven't been cured, and your body is too weak. Lu Yunji on the side actually spoke, with a hint of jealousy in his eyes. Xuanzhi turned a deaf ear and didn't want to deal with such clowns, while some girls glared angrily at Lu Yunji, who felt a bit embarrassed. In an instant, Xuanzhi stood firm and lost his strength. It was just a brief weakness, and there was no major problem. Gulu. I don't know whose stomach is ringing, and everyone feels a bit embarrassed. People always have to eat, drink, and have a good time. Many people move their feet to go to hidden places for convenience. If you die, you'll suffer. Pang Bo sneered and said, fortunately, I'm a clever little ghost. I've been in that heavenly palace for a long time and left my mark. That will be a great witness to humanity's exploration of the starry sky. Puff. Yi Fan instantly felt that the mineral water in his hand was no longer fragrant, almost throwing it away, and couldn't help but cough continuously. No wonder Pang Bo couldn't find anything back then and could only pick the plaque at the end. It turned out that was the reason. That's right, if at that time, when humans go to investigate and survey, and they find your traces, they can propose the theory of the origin of human Mars, saying that Mars has been an inseparable and inherent territory of humanity since ancient times. Xuanzhi also smiled and said, Pang Bo gave Xuanzhi a approving look, looking like a fellow Taoist, while Yi Fan looked at them with some resentment. Do you still have anything to eat? Do you still have those potato chips? I'm a bit hungry, old Chen. Xuanzhi shook his head and was finished by him. The system is currently unable to exchange and needs to wait for a refresh. Besides, eating those fruits is the most important thing. Pang Bo looked a bit regretful, but not long after, he said, there's a spring pond over there. Here we go. Xuanzhi's heart was excited, with a hint of heat flashing through his heart. He knew that the newbie gift package prepared for them by the cruel emperor in their ancient forbidden area had arrived. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Leave the forbidden area. Surprise from Vivi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Leave the forbidden area. Surprise from Vivi. Not far ahead, a few people looked around and saw several old vines as thick as buckets surrounding an open space. There was a 1-meter square spring pool flowing in a gurgling manner, like sweet spring dew. There are more than 10 small trees over half a meter tall growing by the spring, with emerald green leaves that are wide, like the palm of a person's hand. Each small tree bears a bright red fruit, shaped somewhat like a cherry. Jiumiao immortal medicine. A hint of heat flashed in Xuanzhi's heart, and this was a great creation of this forbidden area. Chen is going to mix up with Comrade Yi Fan today. Although he didn't know if the unparalleled Empress in white was standing in the bronze immortal palace under the abyss at this moment, perhaps he was looking at it, but after thinking about it, I was relieved again. After all, Yi Fan and he have a good relationship, and they are both considered brothers. Moreover, in the Battle of Mars, they also formed a deep revolutionary friendship. Is it called rubbing against each other when it comes to brotherly matters? The three of them walked quickly through the vines, and from a distance, they could smell a strong aroma. I'm starving to death. I wasn't in the mood to eat your potato chips before, but you've eaten them all. Now I can be considered full, said Pang Bo. Xuanzhi gave him a silent glance. This fragrant fruit is not poisonous, is it? Yi Fan hesitated. After all, the more vibrant the appearance, the more tempting and toxic it is, not only for humans, but also for animals. You eat it first. Your skin is rough and your flesh is thick, so you must have 100 poisons. Xuanzhi smiled. No, it's still you who comes. I'm a bit hungry and I need to go to the restroom. Pang Bo spoke wildly. Yi Fan looked at the two living treasures and couldn't help feeling speechless. Come on, eat. Xuanzhi picked a fruit and took a gentle bite. The juice flowed and the fragrance lingered, making him feel a fragrant aroma that reached his internal organs. Eating it, I'm afraid of a bird. Pang Bo and Yi Fan were somewhat shocked, thinking that Xuanzhi was a wolf slayer. However, they didn't hesitate and started eating the fruits. Even if Xuanzhi hadn't tried the poison first, they would have eaten them. After all, they were too hungry, and the fruits were indeed too tempting. The fragrance tickled their hearts. Xuanzhi chuckled inwardly. If he dared to eat directly, he naturally had some reliance. The basic function of the double pupils is to penetrate through the frivolity and reach the essence. He can clearly distinguish whether it is a poison or not. No poison. I even feel a lot more energetic. Keep eating. The three of them wolfed down their tongues, wishing they could swallow them all, because it was so fragrant. Xuanzhi felt like a mirror in his heart. After all, it was an elixir of immortality. Oh, this spring water seems to have a faint aroma. Pang Bo took a breath. Yi Fan picked up some and sniffed. The fact that such fruits can be produced here is probably related to the spring water. This spring water is a bit sweet. Xuanzhi took a sip and pretended to be surprised. Put more water back. I think this spring water is extraordinary. Pang Bo took out several mineral water bottles and filled them with water. Xuanzhi also took out a large sports water bottle and filled it with slowly increasing amounts of water. Xuanzhi sighed inwardly. He had originally intended to exchange for some good things and fill it with more water, but when he tried to contact the system, news came that it was under maintenance. No wonder. Places like the Forbidden City in the wilderness were supposed to trigger check.in rewards, but no wonder there hasn't been any movement yet. Surprisingly, the system still needs maintenance, which is too unsound. After returning, Pang Bo gave 2 of the remaining 4 fruits to Zhang Xiling and Lu Yi, and threw the remaining 2 to Yi Fan and Xuanzhi. Xuanzhi did not eat them immediately, but put them in his backpack. Immediately, Xuanzhi keenly felt something was wrong, and everyone's expressions were somewhat silent and depressed. Lu Yunji and the others. Xuanzhi was somewhat surprised that the small group of 3 people had not appeared at this moment. Lu Yunji and the 3 of them are likely to have encountered an unexpected situation. They probably stumbled into a tiger's den while searching for food. Just now, we heard a deafening tiger roar and their screams. Lin Jia's pretty face turned slightly white, and Xuanzhi couldn't help but be surprised by this fact. These 3-person groups have been targeting the Yi Fan group in the original text. Originally, they were plotting to assassinate Yi Fan, but were discovered and instead thrown into a tiger's den, and so because of their arrival, some of the original trajectories were overturned, and they did not target Yi Fan and the others as they did before, but the result still entered the tiger's den, which is regrettable. Let's leave as soon as possible. I always feel that this area is too dangerous. After a moment of silence, Yi Fan suggested. Everyone looked at the distant mountains and terrain, determined a direction, and believed that walking along this road would most likely lead them out. The crowd walked along the mountains and forests, holding the deity and Buddha artifacts that had long lost their divinity. The current function of the Buddha artifacts is probably only to be used as bricks. The vegetation in the mountains is very dense, and many people have found many wild fruits, temporarily solving the problem of food. It was soon evening, and in the abyss, the terrifying figure that Xuanzhi had observed with his double pupils was dancing iron chains, roaring up to the sky, deafening, and the rolling sound made their eardrums ache. Xuanzhi and Yi Fan, along with their group, set off again the next day facing the sun. While moving forward, they unexpectedly discovered a heavenly palace. Everyone looked up and saw a huge mountain, far away from this side, separated by several peaks, with buildings stretching out in a stretch. Surprisingly, there are cranes flying. Isn't it the fairy palace where immortals reside? Well, it seems quite fat. Pang Bo added in a low voice, his eyes slightly burning. Everyone was preparing to quicken their pace, and many were whispering softly. When they arrived at a crowded place, they wanted to travel separately. Xuanzhi took a deep breath of smoke, calmed his mood for a moment, and his eyes looked a bit profound. He knew that it was probably the legendary site of the ancient heavenly court. After stamping out the cigarette but with his feet, he took out another Huazi and lit it casually, following in the footsteps of everyone. "Brother, you're a big smoker." Pang Bo roast. Xuanzhi just smiled and didn't say anything. He also handed them cigarettes, but found out that they didn't smoke. Originally, Xuanzhi wanted to take a photo to commemorate the scene of Yi Tiandi and the great demon Pang Bo swallowing clouds and puffing mist in the future, which was a bit regrettable. A few hours later, everyone advanced along the direction of the heavenly palace, crossing mountains and almost startled a monster that was molting, but in the end, there was no danger. When they arrived at a grassland, they were all feverish and fainted. As expected by Xuanzhi, they all changed their appearance. "Little ghost, why are you wearing Yi Fan's clothes? How did Pang Bo's clothes fit on you? Little brat, where did you come from? You're not good at learning at a young age and still smoke." Xuanzhi, Yi Fan Pang, and Bo became around 12 years old, and the three of them remained silent. After a long time, they realized that it might be a problem with Guazi, but unexpectedly returned to their youth. Lu Yi, who had eaten 2 fruits, remained unchanged, while Zhang Xiling grew older by about 10 years, and the people under him were already young and white-headed, turning into dying old people. Pang Bo has a very mischievous personality. He helped the two of them, with an old man on the left and a mother on the right shouting incessantly, leaving everyone speechless. They also speculated that this eerie forbidden area deprived them of their longevity, while Xuanzhi and his companions became younger due to taking the fruit. Xuanzhi silently experienced this young and unworthy body, feeling that although the body had become smaller, it seemed to have undergone a transformation. Surprisingly, his strength did not decrease, but rather increased significantly. In order to find the hope of becoming young again, everyone continued to move towards the immortal palace and indeed met the beautiful girl Vivi flying with a divine rainbow, which shocked everyone. Those who had just entered this world thought she was a fairy. But Xuanzhi felt a bit uneasy, feeling that the girl's gaze was somewhat surprised, as she occasionally scanned herself. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. What is the legendary physique? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. What is the legendary physique? No way, if the handsome and straight body in the previous game were okay, it would be normal for a girl to be interested in her and have a crush on her. Does this girl have any pedophilia? Xuanzhi kept silent and roast in his heart. Although she looked at others as if they were looking at treasures, she was even more eager to see her own eyes. It made him feel a chill in his heart. By the way, Xuanzhi suddenly remembered that Wei Wei, who had just appeared, seemed to have the legendary immortal eyes, which could be said to be able to see through illusion. He probably saw some clues in his eyes, which is why he looked at him like that. Sure enough, according to the plot, Vivi gently raised her hand and suddenly a rainbow light fell, taking them up into the sky. In the eyes of everyone, this is magic. Within the town, why do you have short hair? Why are you dressed so strangely? Did you appear from the ancient forbidden land? After confirming the simple answer, everyone's eyes were eager. Although some people who came out of the ancient forbidden area lost their years, they also had the potential for cultivation. To Xuanzhi's surprise, the first person who caught people's attention was actually him. After Wei Wei whispered a few words to the elderly people in the Lingshu cave, their gaze towards Xuanzhi was extremely enthusiastic. When several people from the Great Cave came to compete for the immortal Miao, led by Vivi, the Spirit Void Cave Heaven won and obtained the qualification to first select the immortal Miao. The old man in Lingshu cave suddenly pulled Xuanzhi, Yi Fan Pang Bo, and the three of them to their side, with wrinkles on their faces and crooked mouths. It was indeed a pair of terrifying pupils, with double pupils in a Tai Chi shape. After looking at each other, I felt a palpitating sensation. The heart of this spiritual void old man in the cave trembles. He is an old man who has practiced for a long time. Looking at such a younger generation, he has a feeling of panic, which is really unbelievable. What constitution is this? The crowd was uncertain and seemed to have never seen it before, and there seemed to be no relevant records in historical classics. Is it a newly born physique? Double pupils, they really exist. What I saw in an ancient book is that those with heavy pupils are born with divine talents. It seems that they can be traced back to the forgotten years of the chaotic times. Ma Yun, an old man from Yuding Cave, seemed to have remembered something, with a hint of eagerness in his eyes as he looked at Xuanzhi. That's right, my cultivation of immortal spiritual eyes seems to have heard a legend that our world does not seem to have this kind of physique in history, and it is only mentioned briefly in ancient books. Girl Vivi also said. Because this constitution only exists in legends and has not been verified, it has not yet been included in the known, strongest constitution. The elderly people in several big caves pounded their chests and feet, feeling very frustrated. They all hated themselves for not performing well today and missing out on such an immortal seedling. And the following plot is like before. Yi Fan was first discovered to be the Holy Communion of the underworld, which sparked public interest. Then it was proven that the Holy Communion is not suitable for cultivation, has become a useless form, and no one cares about it. Life is full of ups and downs, and the world is desolate, nothing more than that. Immediately, the old people talked about the vastness of the world again, and knowing that the spirit void cave was just a drop in the ocean, they had to feel at a loss. However, the elderly person with spiritual deficiency explained that the entry-level practice is the most important. Although they are in the cave, they are indeed affiliated with a certain holy land, and all opportunities can introduce them to them. It feels so familiar. Upon hearing the old man's preaching, Xuanzhi felt the feeling of his superiors spitting and drawing big cakes for him during his previous job search after a speech. The main idea is that young people should work hard. This is the Yanguo branch campus of the Holy Land, and we will have the experience of being recommended to Tsinghua and Peking University in the future at the request of Chen Xuanzhi and Pang Bo. Yi Fan, who was still at a low point in his life, was also taken into the spiritual void cave. In the end, the group stopped in front of a misty fairy mountain. It was peaceful, with lush trees and pavilions, waterfalls, and cranes dancing in a lively and natural way. It was truly a beautiful place. This crane is really dripping fat. Pang Bo's old ailment had occurred, like a crane in the heavenly palace, with some drooling. The old man next to him took a bad look and admitted that he couldn't beat them at the moment. This place is not a Lingshu cave, just a mountain gate. Inside, there is a misty fairy mist, with strange flowers and plants everywhere. When we arrived at Yunchen's unknown place, we saw a large blue stone standing in front of us, engraved with two ancient characters. Lingshu. Chen Xuanzhi, Yi Fan, and Pang Bo were taken to a low mountain where there were 3 or 5 thatched cottages, 2 or 3 bamboo forests, a medicinal field in front of the house, and several old trees tightly connected. You stay here for now. An elderly guide explained to them a few words before leaving. It's suffocating me. Chen Xuanzhi fumbled for a while, then took out a cigarette from his pocket. After lighting the fire, he swallowed clouds and puffed out mist, enjoying himself with a look on his face. He showed such an expression, which was indeed somewhat. You haven't finished smoking this cigarette yet. Yi Fan leaned over with a strange expression on his face. Not much, I don't have much anymore. Chen Xuanzhi smiled slightly and said. The next day, Chen Xuanzhi was surprised to be notified that the leader of Lingshu Cave had summoned him, and Chen Xuanzhi followed a little boy with the puzzled gaze of Yi Fan and Pang Bo. Because of my arrival, I did indeed walk towards some crossroads. Originally, there was no leader, but according to the game, it triggered some side quests. Is it because of my heavy-eyed physique that I unlocked new characters? When he arrived at a dilapidated hall, the boy led the way and said in a loud voice, "Report to the leader, the person has arrived. Let him come over." Chen Xuanzhi entered the main hall and after bowing, he looked at his predecessors and couldn't help but be slightly stunned. The leader in front of me was actually a woman. She had a stunning appearance, with a slender and graceful hairpin that hung down in the shape of a swallow's tail. She had a beautiful and delicate body, dressed in a light green luo-yi long coat. shining brightly under the scattered light, exuding a fairy-like aura. She was calm and composed, elegant and refined. Undoubtedly, she is a woman in cultivation. Her temperament is far beyond the rouge and common powder he had seen before. He never expected that the Lord of the Spirit Void Cave would be such a beautiful woman, and the waves emanating from her body made him tremble with fear. This woman is unpredictable. What a pair of pupils, truly unparalleled in mystery. The beautiful leader's heart trembled slightly, and a hint of shock flashed on her face in an instant. However, she was quickly concealed without a word, as if she had thought of some legend. "You can practice with me these days." After a brief conversation, the leader Li Wenjing was surprised to say such a thing, which really surprised Xuanzhi. Xuanzhi nodded. Although he didn't know why the leader suggested actively teaching him, the person with heavy pupils had a deep and intelligent mind, amazing judgment, and felt that the other party didn't have any malicious intent, so he agreed. In practice, having someone to teach is very important. Even if one's unreliable system is maintained from time to time, they cannot rely solely on them, and they also need to walk the path of cultivation on their own. Leader Li Wenjing rearranged the accommodation for Xuanzhi, which was in a bamboo forest, while the cave owner's room was surprisingly located not far away. Xuanzhi went back to pick up something, temporarily bid farewell to Yi Fan and the others, and moved into a new residence. The leader told him that he would be guided into practice tomorrow. At night, the starry sky was brilliant, and a cool breeze blew in waves. Xuanzhi leaned against a large bamboo, his eyes deep, and he pondered the next path. Ding! System maintenance completed, new check.in location refreshed, Demon Emperor's tomb. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Opening up the Sea of Sorrow and Awakening the Divine Art of Double Eyes Talent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Opening up the Sea of Sorrow and Awakening the Divine Art of Double Eyes Talent. Is it the tomb of the Demon Emperor? Xuanzhi looked at the starry sky and couldn't help but murmur to himself. The tomb of the Demon Emperor is said to be the burial place of the Qing Emperor, the last great emperor in the post-wasteland era. It contains the complete basic scripture for practicing in the Luanhai realm, known as the strongest cultivation technique in the basic chapter, as well as a heart of the Demon Emperor and a copper block suspected of being revered as a celestial cauldron by the emperor. The next day. As the sun rises, the soft sunlight pours down, casting a faint halo over the front, back, and treetops of the house, appearing peaceful and tranquil. The beautiful leader Li Wenjing also arrived early. She had a soft and peaceful appearance, dressed in a white long dress and came in a graceful manner, like a fairy from Guanhan in the dust. She is preparing to teach Xuanzhi and guide him into the path of cultivation. She first felt surprised by Xuanzhi's bone-touching and spirit-measuring expressions, realizing that this kid's talent was truly amazing. However, Xuanzhi felt a bit uneasy and awkward. He thought to himself, fortunately, she was a beautiful woman. If she were a terrible old man, he would still feel a sense of unease in his heart. Undoubtedly, it is the legendary talent of gods and humans. Li Wenjing sighed inwardly, and her gaze towards Xuanzhi became increasingly hot. Immediately, Li Wenjing began to teach him the concept of cultivation, such as that all things have a place of birth and development, and there is also such a place in our human body that is the foundation of life vitality, containing the essence of the whole body. It is called the life source wheel, or the life wheel, and it is also the foundation of cultivation. As she said, to enter the path of cultivation, one must first sense the wheel of life, and then try to open up the sea of suffering before officially stepping onto the path of cultivation. Created in the sea of suffering, brewed with vitality in the silence, cultivated divine veins, sacrificed as a bridge, reached the other shore, and arrived at the end of the sea of suffering. This is the largest secret realm of the human body, the Wheel Sea secret realm. Xuanzhi nodded thoughtfully, and the mysterious principles of all things in the world appeared in his heart. Unconsciously, it was already sunset, approaching dusk. Unexpectedly, before entering the path of cultivation, he had already reached the point of forgetting sleep and food. Another day passed, and Li Wenjing was elaborating on the theoretical basis, while Xuanzhi was also trapped in the principles of nature, unable to extricate himself from the wonders of heaven and earth, and didn't want to smoke much on the third day. Li Wenjing wanted to tell him the basic chapter as before, but she didn't expect Xuanzhi's words to shock her. I sense the wheel of life. Leader Li Wenjing's face immediately changed slightly. When it was confirmed that this was indeed the case, he felt somewhat incredulous and very surprised. This talent is rare in ancient and modern times, and it is estimated that it can be compared to the descendants of those holy sites, right? Moreover, he did not take any medication. For ordinary practitioners, they would use Baichao liquid to assist in induction. However, for some special constitutions, this Baichao liquid has little effect. Some people rely on their own anti-heaven perception to sense the wheel of life. Xuanzhi did sense that he could guide the flow of essence, and now he is almost ready to open up the sea of suffering. Li Wenjing had already left behind the Dao Jing the day before yesterday, claiming to be the strongest basic and introductory technique. Although it is a fragment, it is also precious. The truly complete technique lies in the tomb of the Demon Emperor. At this moment, under the guidance of Li Wenjing, he is operating his Xiangong and preparing to try to open up the sea of suffering. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly the sky and earth in this area became golden, and a tsunami-like sound erupted, deafening. In Xuanzhi's bitter sea, there were countless divine lights and dazzling colors. The blue sea was surging and surging, like 1,000 armies and horses galloping. The sea of suffering for ordinary people is lifeless, but his sea of suffering has an indescribable vitality that seems to contain vigorous vitality. Immediately, a situation that surprised him even more appeared, where on the tumbling tide, two energies of yin and yang appeared. The two energies of yin and yang are steaming, constantly circling over the sea of suffering, forming a mysterious trajectory that continuously arranges and combines in the air, and then turns into brilliant light and rain, like pure white petals, slowly drifting into the boundless sea of suffering. Yin and yang qi reenact chaos. Xuanzhi's heart trembled, and he felt a sensation. The yin and yang qi constantly surrounded and evolved, yet they contain the trajectory of the great Tao. All things are negative in yin and embrace yang, and when they are charged with qi, they consider harmony. Is the rotation of yin and yang evolving into chaos? Although it is a small change now, his mind and spirit have a sense. His vast ocean of suffering is rippling with strands of chaos, which is a mysterious change. He even thought, one day, his sea of suffering will completely turn into chaos, becoming a sea of chaos. Yifan's sea of suffering is golden, like a divine iron, it is very difficult to open up, and his heavy-eyed physique makes the sea of suffering different from ordinary people. Moreover, it opened up so quickly, and in the future, it may even turn into a chaotic sea, which stirred his mind. At this moment, his body was bathed in radiance, emitting a sparkling treasure light, which was very magical. His originally smooth skin was like jade, flowing with divine radiance. After successfully opening up the bitter sea, he felt a sense of change in his double pupils as he officially entered the path of cultivation. He felt a slight tingling and itching in his eyes, as if something was wriggling in his pupils, causing a strange sensation to rise in his heart. He, who was originally sitting in the open space, suddenly stood up, which surprised Li Wenjing beside her. However, she knew that at this moment, he seemed to be in a state of transformation and did not disturb him. Xuanzhi, relying on his senses, slowly closed his eyes and walked towards the nearby bamboo forest. There were rolling stones that looked like water tanks standing tall. He felt as if his eyes were about to burst out with energy, so he prepared to use those large stones to experiment. Not long after, Xuanzhi stood silently, the gentle breeze caressing him, as if time had frozen somewhere. He suddenly opened a pair of eyes, and at this moment, his eyes were as bright as golden lamps, carrying a threatening aura, very terrifying. Boom! Two dazzling golden beams burst out from their eyes, moving rapidly and clanging like the sound of swords. They pierced through the gold and cracked the stone, and a huge stone in front of them was shattered by the two golden beams, turning into powder on the ground. This Li Wenjing's pupils shrank slightly, and her heart stirred up waves and waves. Her chest kept fluctuating, making her feel very uneasy. In terms of power alone, it's probably comparable to the full force of the cultivator Shangshan Bridge. Indeed, it is a legendary terrifying physique. And Chen Xuanzhi felt something in his heart, which was probably the innate ability of the double-eyed person, just like the divine technique brewed by the supreme bone of Shihao in the perfect world, the hand of heaven, and the light of heaven's calamity. And in this world, there are only a few records about double pupils, and there is no record of innate magic. So, in his heart, he named this pupil magic power himself. Silent Eye. The sudden control of such a powerful force made Chen Xuanzhi feel a bit unreal. Those who do not have double pupils are born divine beings. It is not just a matter of words. Previously, they had not yet practiced and were not very obvious. But now, he increasingly feels the extraordinary nature of this physique. Let me write about the reputation of double pupils. Chen Xuanzhi suddenly felt a surge of pride in his heart. Gollum. Chen Xuanzhi felt a bit embarrassed. After neglecting sleep and food to practice, he was still hungry. Looking at Li Wenjing beside him, he couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed, but Li Wenjing seemed to be unaware and still stared blankly at the ground's powder. Master, I'm leaving first. Chen Xuanzhi bowed, while Li Wenjing nodded dumbfounded, unsure of what he was thinking. Chen Xuanzhi was a bit amused, but his mind immediately moved, feeling uneasy about Yi Fan and Pang Bo. He thought to take a stroll around Yi Fan and Pang Bo to see what was going on. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Filial piety and respect for the elderly, Chen Xuanzhi, recommended. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Filial piety and respect for the elderly, Chen Xuanzhi, recommended. At this moment, it is already the night time, with the bright moon hanging high and the moonlight as soft as water waves. The clear light is scattered and hazy, creating a peaceful scene. In front of the thatched cottage by the medicine field, 3 people sat down separately, and on the table were some exquisite side dishes, with wine and meat, very abundant. Ah, Lao Chen, you're still very skilled. We've been eating lately and our mouths have been fading away. Pang Bo looked up and took a sip of wine, admiring him so much. Sigh, we've been vegetarians these days and haven't eaten minced meat for a long time. Yi Fan also complained a bit and grabbed a chicken leg, saying so. Chen Xuanzhi smiled, and he naturally wouldn't say that he had exchanged it in the system. Good wine and meat had consumed his last savings, and of course, he hadn't enjoyed them recently because the sect leader had seriously told him that practitioners should learn to have a clear mind and few desires. Upon learning that Chen Xuanzhi had already opened up a sea of suffering, the two of them congratulated and were very excited, and after the joy, Yi Fan's expression was also somewhat melancholic. The sea of suffering is like divine iron, hard as a rock. The physical condition of the ancient holy body is extremely special. Although it has not yet entered the cultivation stage, but is still in the stage of absorbing common knowledge, it has been told that it is very difficult for him to sense the wheel of life and open up the sea of suffering. Chen Xuanzhi patted Yi Fan's shoulder with a hint of alcohol and said, I believe you, the ancient holy body will surely shine in your presence. Yi Fan smiled at the words and felt grateful in his heart. He knew that Chen Xuanzhi was encouraging him and his mood had improved. He was already a resilient and outgoing person, and naturally would not stop moving forward due to the impact of his physical disability. By the way, what's the unique function of your heavy pupils reaching the ground? Why do those elders care so much about you? Pang Bo said. It's nothing, just a simple perspective. Ah. Pang Bo instinctively held his hands on his chest, revealing an exaggerated expression. A black line appeared on Chen Xuanzhi's forehead, and he gritted his teeth and said, no matter how poor I am, I won't stare at the old men. That's a bit regrettable. Most of us are male cultivators in this place, and only a few female cultivators are relatively old. I don't know if you're good at that. In the future, if you have the opportunity to worship a certain holy land, there will definitely be many goddesses and immortals, and then you will have the opportunity to feast your eyes. Yi Fan smiled and joked. It's truly you. Xuanzhi complained in his heart that he finally saw Yi Hei's face in the legend. After a few words, Xuanzhi rolled his eyes. In the following month, Xuanzhi returned to the residence arranged by the leader before, continuously practicing mystical techniques, and finally completely stabilized the realm of the Bitter Sea. But he was still unsatisfied. To practice the Imperial Seal technique, at least he needed to break into the realm of the Life Spring. In the tomb of the Demon Emperor, there will also be many powerful cultivators in the future. It seems that even the Shaking Light Holy Land and the ancient aristocratic family will come. The realm of the Bitter Sea is probably not enough to deliver vegetables. In fact, in the original work, Yi Fan wandered through the primitive ruins and dared not get too close, only constantly exploring the edges. The years of cultivation have passed by hastily, and unconsciously, half a year has already passed in a spirit void cave. What? The conference asked me to speak and share my experiences in practicing. Xuanzhi's mouth twitched slightly. In the past 6 months, he had hardly moved around and had been practicing. However, now the leader suddenly came over and informed him of this. According to the leader's instructions, he has made rapid progress during this period, which has been noticed by the organization. In this conference, we need him to speak as a representative of the new students, exchange experiences, and inspire some underachievers who have not yet opened up the sea of hardship. Of course, as an important and valuable practical experience, it will be recorded to prepare for future selection into the Holy Land. In short, it means representing outstanding freshmen and accumulating internship experience through gilding. Okay. Xuanzhi didn't want to go and didn't make a name for himself, but he couldn't resist the fact that the leader treated him well, so he agreed. In front of Lingshu Cliff. You're so young, you've already opened up a Bitter Sea, truly a fairy seedling. You're just a doll, you've already achieved such success. His pupils are very special, and even after looking at each other, it gives me a palpitating feeling. Everyone was discussing with astonishment. In front of Lingshu Cliff, Xuanzhi's face was serious. He first thanked the sect leader for his teachings and the cultivation of the cave sky, and then said he had entrusted his fellow disciples with blessings. The elders who listened nodded repeatedly, sighing inwardly that a child could be taught. In the formal explanation of some experiences of cultivation, Xuanzhi realized that cultivation is inherently profound and mysterious. Such vague and seemingly ambiguous things are the most thought-provoking. In this aspect, he surprisingly excels. Seeing the many adorable expressions below showing contemplation and surprise, Xuanzhi couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. However, when he scanned below, he accidentally noticed that Yi Fan and Pang Bo had also arrived. According to the plot, they had already opened up a sea of suffering at around this time, and coming at this time was undoubtedly to support Xuanzhi's scene. After Xuanzhi finished speaking, he found that they had actually left. However, a burst of gaze followed, and of course, he avoided his eyes, occasionally casting a vague glance. Xuanzhi's eyes lit up as he looked over. The person who was looking at him had a withered body, dressed in black as if wrapped around a short bamboo pole, and paired with his disheveled white hair, he looked a bit eerie and terrifying. Xuanzhi's eyes narrowed slightly. As usual, before the opening ceremony of the Lingshu Cliff speech, the elders had already introduced themselves. This person's surname was Han, and for some reason, he felt like he had just stared at him with some ill intentions. Although the feeling was vague and he had restrained his breath, he still caught that moment. Xuanzhi is so quick and sharp that those with heavy pupils are already intelligent and extremely sharp. This spiritual void and cave like Elder Han seems to have some impression that he is a villain who has appeared in the cover of the sky. Xuanzhi is not afraid of him. Not to mention that many elders are here, let alone his cultivation. That elder is only in the realm of the life spring, and even in the realm of the sea of sorrow, he is not afraid of him at all. So it's you. Xuanzhi's mind was moved, and he knew about this person. In the original work, this person knew that Yi Fan had taken the holy fruit in divine spring, and that Yi Fan was a legendary, waste body. He wanted to extract him as a great medicine for the human body, but now he has started paying attention to him. In fact, Elder Han's heart was bitter and very aggrieved. As a fairy seedling, Xuanzhi dared not touch him in such a situation. Moreover, it is said that he has a close relationship with the sect leader. Just now, when I watched him, I completely thought that this child had also taken the holy fruit and divine spring. Therefore, I subconsciously imagined that my brain had replenished a wave of medicine for him, and the breath inadvertently revealed by him was actually caught by him. Xuanzhi's eyes flickered slightly, and a faint light flowed. He looked over with heavy pupils. In an instant, Elder Han's heart trembled and his face turned white. His pupils made him feel like he was trapped in a pitch-black abyss, constantly torn apart by the storm. As Xuanzhi walked over, everyone was somewhat surprised. At this moment, many cultivators had already left, leaving only a few elders of Lingshu. Elder Han, what's wrong with you? Xuanzhi walked over and looked at Elder Han with a seemingly friendly and caring gaze, with a friendly smile that was harmless to humans and animals. However, there was a hint of double-eyed power in his eyes, constantly eroding his mind and only targeting him. Others had no idea how much pain Elder Han had suffered at this moment. In the eyes of the other elders, they were very pleased and believed that he was a good child who cared about his elders. What a good child. Not only is his cultivation talent amazing, but he also has a pure and kind heart. Old Han, let's not keep tinkering with those poisonous insects and medicines. Your body is already so weak. Yeah, get a lot of sun exposure. Look at your pale skin with dark circles and heavy eyes. You need to manage your time well and don't hide in caves all day. Well, I have a friend who gave me some tiger whips and deer antler. When you come to me later, I'll give you some to repair and strengthen your body. At this moment, Elder Han was overwhelmed by the power of his pupils. Looking at Xuanzhi's kind gaze, he felt like crying without tears, but in his heart, he only wanted to say, go to Teimo's pure and kind heart, care for the elders. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Shock. The physique of a person with double pupils. Surprisingly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Shock. The physique of a person with double pupils is surprisingly. Xuanzhi bowed his hand and bid farewell to the elders. He walked away leisurely and gracefully, with a slightly upturned mouth and a frightened expression on his face. Elder Han, whose expression was gloomy and uncertain, stood in place. Returning to his place of residence, it was already late at night. After Xuanzhi returned, he sat cross-legged on a smooth and flat large stone in front of a house, with a deep gaze. He was pondering the next path and how to proceed. The realm of the bitter sea is indeed too weak in this world. It's okay to be in the spiritual void cave sky. If you want to go out for training, there will definitely be many crises, and you need to constantly sign in, so you are destined not to be in a corner. Moreover, the spiritual void cave sky is indeed too small, like a drop in the ocean. He closed his eyes slightly, seemingly lost in thought, but his heart became lively because in the recharge system, in addition to purchasing daily necessities and items with ordinary coins, there is now a new recharge system that can be used to exchange for martial arts and classics. And the recharged items actually need to be invaluable sources. According to ancient records, in the era of the harmony of heaven and earth and the creation of all things, grass and trees flourished, living beings were powerful, and spiritual medicines were endless. It also produces many sources, which are as crystal as amber and contain a lot of essence of life. Even some rare divine sources are sealed with powerful creatures from ancient times, and once extracted, they can provide massive amounts of life essence. Xuanzhi knew that this source was really a hard currency. Yifan's practice of the ancient holy body was like a bottomless pit, and he didn't know how many sources had been consumed in the early stages of his cultivation. And those ancient emperors and heavenly sovereigns who were sleeping in the forbidden zone also cut themselves off, sealing themselves in the divine source to slow down the flow of life because he has not yet obtained the source. The page for redeeming items in the system cannot be displayed, which makes him quite regretful. The most important thing at the moment is to enter the realm of the life spring, so as to have the courage to go out, and then find ways to deal with some sources. In the following month, Xuanzhi stayed in seclusion and occasionally went out to inquire about spiritual emptiness elders and practices. Because during this period, the leader still went out from time to time, and she couldn't inquire in time, so she could only ask some elders. But the sect leader is still very concerned about him breaking through the realm of the life spring. Every now and then, they will bring him some spiritual medicines, and Xuanzhi's suffering sea is gradually expanding. Finally, a week later, when he fell into the ethereal realm again, the sea of suffering was no longer calm and began to gush wildly. This was a sign that he was about to communicate with the wheel of life and release the divine spring. He naturally knew that this was a sign of breaking through. Although it may be more difficult than the bitter sea, the problem is still not significant. He once again comprehended the Hedao Jing, which had some annotations left by the sect leader. Coupled with his unparalleled talent, he naturally broke through quickly. Boom! A powerful aura erupted, and Xuanzhi's whole body was filled with surging energy, like a vast ocean. The surrounding plants and trees were scattered, rocks were scattered in the air, and the ground was trembling. He sensed that in the most central part of the sea of suffering, a spring eye appeared, communicating with the wheel of life. The divine spring was flowing in a gurgling manner. What surprised him the most was that the yin and yang energies, which were originally floating above the sea of suffering, had separated. The interweaving and fusion of the yin and yang energies had become a partially confused chaotic energy, entangled in the divine spring. And at this moment, his eyes suddenly changed again, with a strong vitality appearing in his left eye and a destructive power in his right eye. The power of yin and yang seemed to flow in his eyes, but in an instant, everything disappeared again. It seemed like an illusion. Is this the next path for Midraius's surgery? Xuanzhi's team felt a deep sense of the power of destruction because they had already awakened the first type of innate divine spell. He vaguely felt that if they activated the second type of innate divine spell, it would probably be related to the pupils of vitality and creation. Life and death are opposites, but they also complement each other. Destruction and vitality are originally a process of reincarnation and transformation, just like the black and white Tai Chi diagram. Only by combining the two can a subtle and perfect balance be achieved, which he has already felt in his heart. It's time to practice the tool. After the completion of Xian Shu, he could practice using the divine pattern. He was preparing to practice, but now Xuanzhi was surprised that the bitter sea of development did not show the divine pattern that should have existed. Where is the endless essence of life? Suddenly, Xuanzhi suddenly realized that there seemed to be a rich power of life contained within that yin and yang energy. Are these my divine patterns? Xuanzhi was deeply moved at the moment, and then took a closer look. The interwoven yin and yang energies were distributed in an extremely regular manner, like chains of ordered gods. Although the colors were not as bright, they were very deep, containing vitality in the principles of creation. I see. I didn't understand before, but now I finally have a clear idea. The yin and yang qi that emerged during the opening of the sea of suffering is probably the divine pattern exclusive to the double pupil constitution. It turns out that people with double pupils not only rely on pupil surgery, but also have some differences in their bodies compared to ordinary cultivators. After all, double pupils are naturally divine beings, not just relying on a pair of eyes alone. Xuanzhi further realized the unfathomable nature of double pupils. In a perfect world, the only one who can compete with the 10 crown kings, exiled immortals, and other celestial beings who have accumulated over a lifetime, apart from the countless anomalies, is the wild heavenly Emperor Hedao, who was born for the purpose of practicing Taoism and suffering tribulations. You can say that what matters is people, not physique, but don't forget that in the world of obscurity, there are only a few people who can reach the peak with their mortal body. Only after truly achieving great success and understanding the origin of all things can one speak casually that physical fitness is not the most important thing, and that the mortal body is the source of everything. Xuanzhi dare not fully agree with this kind of speech, but can only say that there is some truth, because not everyone can reach the summit, so physical fitness is also crucial. For example, after someone becomes famous and successful, they can naturally say, "I'm not interested in money." Xuanzhi also believed that he had achieved success and fame at this moment, and it was understandable that he was not interested in money. However, he never believed that a few years ago, when he was still young, he could calmly say that he was not interested in money. After sighing in his heart for a while, Xuanzhi once again fell into a difficult choice and now had a major problem. What tool can I practice with divine patterns? Xuanzhi frowned, feeling somewhat unable to choose. In fact, relying solely on the power of untrained divine patterns can kill enemies. However, Xuanzhi felt that his divine patterns were different from ordinary people. In order to keep a low profile and make it more convenient to fight against enemies, he still needed to practice them as tools. Ordinary cultivators can sacrifice divine patterns into various shapes, such as flying knives, daggers, etc., and can release them outside the body to kill enemies, which is more effective than divine patterns. Some people spend a lot of time and effort sacrificing the primitive, divine patterns, into flying swords, small shields, divine halberds, etc., which are easier to control and have much greater power against enemies. Some people are not afraid of complexity and mystery, and by repeatedly hammering and practicing the shapes of ding, zhong, or tower, they can unleash various mysterious powers. Representative works include the Mother Qi Cauldron of all things, the Wuxia Bell, and so on. Generally speaking, the more complex and mysterious the artifact is, the greater its power will be, and of course, it will be more difficult to form. Many cultivators may waste their entire lives and may not achieve significant results. How about forging a cigarette or a pair of sunglasses? Xuanzhi suddenly felt a wicked interest in his heart, and he thought of it. In later generations, it is recorded that Emperor Xuantian's magical power is profound, and his true body does not emerge. He patrols the star realm with a single cigarette, intimidating major life-forbidden areas. Thinking of this, Xuanzhi couldn't help but smile, revealing his pure white teeth, which were very bright and showed a rare hint of youthful temperament. Practicing to become a cigarette and sunglasses was naturally his momentary pleasure, and he couldn't take it seriously. He already had a vague idea in his mind. Tai Chi diagram. End of this chapter.